Hello and welcome to Life is Feudal, Forest Village. Well, the good news is problems are solved. Everything's now back to normal. Game's running absolutely fine. I can get through the seasons, winter in particular, without a problem. Happy days are here again. So, where are we at then? Well, Village 1 is no more. All that's left really, I suppose, is the keep. That's going to be a massive overhaul to rebuild that, so I think I'm just going to leave it. I mean, there's no research left to do. Seems kind of crazy to build a completely new keep and then eventually demolish this one, so I think I'm just going to make my life a bit easier and wait until we get round to doing Village 3. I mean, there is a risk that if this place ever gets set on fire, there's no one around to put it out. I mean, I've got a well, but there's nobody anywhere nearby. But that aside, what else have we been doing? Well, I did reduce the number of chickens over here. We were producing way too many eggs, but now I'm finding that the bakeries, they're running out of eggs, so we're going to reintroduce this chicken coop here, which means I need to put another herdsman back, and we're going to get these nice little chickens, at least half of them, to go and run over there. I mean, they breed pretty quickly anyway, so I'm not too fussed about that. Won't take too much time for those two to quickly get up to speed. We've got tons of oats, still got vegetables. I mean, we're into the spring of a new year. We haven't done too bad actually. I mean, we're on to about nearly 4,000 vegetables still going. Fruit's doing pretty good. I mean, we were up to about 20,000 I think when we were going into the winter, so we're doing pretty good on that. Oops, I didn't want to actually shut that down. Meat, so-so. Vegetables, yeah, so-so. But one thing I've noticed is I think I've probably kind of like overestimated things on this design, because what we've got usually is we'll have like a caravan stable that's balancing the resources between these barns. I was expecting to have tons and tons of produce, but you know, getting shared between all these barns, I wanted to be able to cope with the capacity, and as it's turned out, there's hardly anything actually being produced. So what I've now done is I've had a bit of an overhaul really. The odd barns, like working our way from the outside in, the odd barns, the plan was just don't do anything with them. Get them to focus on the even barns, because that barn there it gets used to take the goods out of the area to go into the centre, and likewise to bring goods from the centre back in. So I've got to keep that one going. So I figured I'll keep the even ones active and just stop using the odd ones. And so I've basically rejigged all these trade routes, so that the actual caravan traders don't do that much now. I've done the same down here. The plan was to do the same thing here, so I've got these doing these particular caravanners. They actually look after these three sets here. That caravaner up there, they only have to look after these two sets, but it's pretty much the same, where what they're doing is, because it's the outside barns that are the main active ones, I've got them just balancing stuff between the outer ones. The inner ones we couldn't care less about, because as far as I can see, I've just completely overspec'd this. So we're doing the same over here. Again, that's the outside, so we're balancing food. Well, that one becomes inactive. That one and that one are where we're actually sharing the produce. Now, the way I had it set up was I was actually then using the storage management mod to actually then block anybody from bringing produce to these particular barns. But it turns out that's been the cause of my problems. Well, actually not just that mod, it's actually a combination of that and the actual farming overhaul mod. Those two mods together, I don't know why, I'm not even going to try and speculate, but while I've got those two active, the GPU on my computer, that's the graphics card, runs extremely low. I mean 3, maybe 4%. It was that bad, and it really got me puzzled as to why, you know, things were just running so bad. I mean, it's not just used for, you know, producing the actual graphical display. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, it gets used for something like, you know, things like mathematical computations, because people use them for like Bitcoin mining, or at least they did anyway. So it's a case of somehow the combination of those two mods together was giving me very, very little GPU utilization. As soon as I disabled them, the GPU is just shot up. It's actually running a much higher. The game's running much smoother, and that's how I've resolved my problems. I mean, basically I just disabled all of the mods bar probably about 2 that I had to keep, and the problems just went away. So I just narrowed it down, and it came down to a combination of those two. So at the moment it means that these barns, they're still technically, well, these ones, like here for instance, they're still technically active, which is a bit of a pain in the neck, to be honest, because I'd rather take them away. If I pause them, the trouble is, all that does, it stops people taking things away from them. It doesn't stop anybody putting things in, so it's kind of messing things up for me. So the plan is, they're going. We've got to get rid of these barns. That one has a warehouse instead of an extra barn. But all of these barns, we're getting rid of them. That's the plan. And then we'll have a bit more balance in all the trading that goes on. So all the centre barns can go. Don't need any of them anymore. And then hopefully what we'll get is a better sort of like balance of the actual produce. Then we'll start to see things getting spread around a lot better. So those two need to go. So there you go. I can't quite tell if they are or not. Oh, they probably were already. I think I probably actually did. I probably already arranged them to be deconstructed anyway. Right, so where we want to get rid of these two as well. No point having them or them, because I don't want to bring that mod back. The one that's for storage management. It does help, to be honest. In the sense that I'm going to have people now dumping things into the centre barns again, but to be honest, I'd rather just at least have the game actually running more smoothly. So that's those barns now gone, and other things. What else have I been up to? Well, we've got that house over there now built because we've pulled everybody from the village over there. Down here I've actually deconstructed the actual blast furnace. Now these two entry points, well, these two building sites, I must admit, they're still there, but as I'll show you, as soon as I grab a hold of somebody, I can actually get rid of them now. So it's still saying they're inaccessible, and the trouble is none of the builders or anybody will actually come anywhere near the place. Let's see if we can find our healer. It doesn't show me where they are. They're in there. They're probably in there in the actual house. No, my luck. No, you're not in. There's nobody in. Great. Okay, so if we go to that house, oh, there he is. There. Right, I'll grab a hold of Jeffrey here. Right, come on, Jeffrey. Let's get rid of these buildings. It's weird. I don't know why. I mean, I do remember looking on the forums. Somebody was talking about pathing issues with that blast furnace, where you might have people actually get stuck, and you know, in the actual building itself, and they end up just literally starving to death. So that's kind of why I was wondering, you know, if it was that particular building causing the issue, and sure enough, it is. So you can see the game hasn't crashed, and that's just basically because the blast furnace is gone. So we'll just get him to finish this off. Come on. Et voila. Problem gone. So, we'll do a bit of terraforming while we're down here. May as well. We'll have to redo the roads. But I think that's what I'll probably have to bear in mind in the future, is that if I ever wanted to build something in this area, build that, and then put the blast furnace in last. Strange. I mean, I honestly thought it was to do with this map hole bug, but it's It's something about that blast furnace that's causing my problems. Now, I'm still not in a position to actually bring anybody down to work here. I'd really like to. We've hardly got any food in this barn here. So we still need to get that resolved. Now I think that should probably start to sort itself out once these actual... Oh, hello. Oh, it's saying the barn's full. Oh, that's because I've got tons and tons of things like wool and what have you. I need to get all of that out of there and moved up to here. For the tailors, I've even actually ended up adding in a third tailor because they just weren't keeping up with the demand. But I've got tons of wool, tons of flax, so I've disabled these fields. Or at least I thought I had. Take those two out because we need to get rid of the surplus flax. We need to start putting all that wool to use. Then I can start freeing up space in there. But the idea is once these barns are gone, we should see a better balance of food. Between the actual barns themselves, and then we've actually got a caravanner. They actually balance the food between that barn and that barn. So the idea is we should start to see more food popping up in this barn, which means the caravanner here can then bring more food to this barn. I just need to check what the ratio is now, because it might be too high. So that's about 5 to 1 at the moment. Yeah, because there's not, to be honest, I mean, there's like tons of people up here compared to living down here. So that's why I've got it on it's like a kind of a high ratio. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased now because it means that this game's running a heck of a lot smoother. But the question is, I mean, there's tons of stuff still to do where we've got to get rid of these barns and it's going to take ages. I mean, it's like 42. I can crank that up and put a few more people into the actual building trade to speed that up. But... see where these are up to. 23 of 36, 20 of 36. So we should start to see more eggs getting produced over here, which is good. But one thing I've noticed is we've completely overshot it with actual, you know, the flour and the grain. Because this barn here, so that's that one there you see, there's tons of grain lying around, tons of flour. So I think like 1 mill in one little field it's like way more than even like for 2 actual bakeries. So I'm thinking of rebuilding this. So what we do is we end up sharing the mill among, say, like 2 vegetable bakers and 2 meat pie bakers, for instance, because it's just complete overkill. This is just going to keep, you know, producing more and more flour, more and more grain. And I don't want to have to keep pausing the actual farm off all the time. So it kind of makes me think this kind of like building design that I've got isn't really the way to go. Putting the eggs in makes a lot of sense, you know, just having a couple of small chicken coops, having some dedicated oat fields, possibly. Depends on how many oats we end up with, because we've got like 17,000 oats lying around somewhere since I've got these 2 fields up and running. So because we're actually running short on meat, I think I'm going to introduce another pig farm. I'm going to see how it goes, but if these 2 fields keep up with the demand, and bear in mind I've taken that farming overhaul mod out, so I don't necessarily expect to see the same you know, high turnover this year. So I mean, it's still worth trying. So if we put that one there, so that would go, yeah, 35 by 18. So I'll flip that to about, say, there, because the exit entry point is just on the right side of those little huts. So if we get them to build that, while we're at it, we may as well put that stone road in. So I'll just keep an eye on that. We'll get them to build this. I was going to prioritise it, but I'd rather get rid of the actual barns. And I mean, they're working their way through. Some of them have got like tons of produce. I mean, I think that one there, it's got tons of oats in it, and that's just because of when I had a field down here, it was supposed to be producing potatoes. I'd actually left it on actually producing oats at one point. So we ended up with something like 12,000 oats sitting in that barn at one point. So they're going to empty all this lot out. But yeah, I mean, this is just brilliant, this, for me, because it means, I mean, I can run this game at, you know, ×3. pretty much all year round now. I missed that one out, so you can go. Or did I miss out? I'm not sure anyway. But at least that'll go. So yeah, once all these extra barns go, that'll be great. It's a bit of a shame really. I would have liked to have kept a hold of them, but the trouble is it's yeah, I can pause the actual barn, but people are still going to put all the produce in, and I'd rather have like a big high build up of produce in that one barn being shared by that one barn. And it makes it a lot easier. It means I need fewer actual caravanners. I mean, I've taken some of them out of these little sort of like caravan stables here. I've started putting them into the edge ones because they have more things to do. I mean, they've got that one there. They've got like 5 tasks to do. So I've ramped them up to have like two caravanners, same as those. So they have quite a lot still to do, whereas these just have just a few things. This particular one, actually, that's interesting, yeah, so they've literally just got one task to do. What about the one up here, if I can find it? That one, yeah, they've only got one thing to do as well, so it seems kind of overkill, but the trouble is I wouldn't want like this caravanner here doing all of these barns and then doing all of those barns as well, because it's quite a lot of work to do. But I think what I'm going to do next is I want to focus on here, because we're into the spring and we've got quite a lot of fish, but we still have like quite a lot of farmers just sitting around in the winter doing nothing. I'd rather have like a big build up of fish. So I did some terraforming down here, so I'm just going to keep expanding this out. So the plan is, I mean, once it gets a bit clearer and I can actually see what on earth I'm doing, I'm going to repeat this design where we're going to build a hostel down here, a couple of barns, some statues, wells, a bit of decent lighting for them. That'll all go down here, and then we'll start putting another block of 16 fish farms in. So that gives me, you know, even more jobs for these actual farmers over the winter to do, because I know I'm pretty sure that once I start getting into higher numbers of people, it's going to cause me more problems again, so I'd rather try and keep ahead of the curve, if you will. So I'm just going to let them focus on these actual barns first, because there's tons still to do. There's no point introducing all these at this stage until they're finished with the barns, to be honest. They'll just never get around to doing it. So I'll leave them to get on with that. Once they're finished, I'll bring you back. Well, we're into the fall and all of these barns are now gone. There is quite an imbalance, I must admit, so it is quite a bit of work for these, you know, caravanners to do. So you got like nearly 4,000 in here versus, well, about 500. So it's a lot of like work to do, because I mean, one caravaner, I don't know exactly how much they carry on each trip, but that's quite an imbalance to work on. It was much worse when I was bringing, say, stuff from here to here, then from here to here, then from here to here. I mean, I could certainly introduce more people, but I'm just going to leave it for a while and see how it plays out. Now, what I've done since is I've realised we've obviously got we've got an extra pig farm here. I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to send half of the pigs over to there, just to speed things up for these, for this pasture. Let's play that out a bit and see if they start moving. That seems a bit weird. Right, okay, that seemed a bit better. I've since actually deconstructed the road down here, because the trouble is, because I've introduced that extra pasture, it means there's a lot more people here than we can, the housing can actually cope with. So what I am going to do is I'm going to introduce a house into the area. I was originally just going to build a small house there, but I'm thinking actually I'm just going to build an actual proper sized house. So dump that. It's like, as part of me wants to line up there the doorstep with the road, but another part that says I want it in the middle of the actual gap there. It's 6 and 2 3s, right? We'll dump it there. What the heck? So I'll just keep an eye on that one. I don't know what's been going on down here. I must have missed it somehow, but the healer shop down here ended up getting set on fire at some point because I just suddenly noticed it was destroyed, so I'm having to get them to rebuild it. Down here, I've got them building the stone roads, and I've got the foundations in, so we're ready to go and put ourselves in a hostel and all the storage down here, and then we'll start working on the actual fish farms. I mean, to be honest, I think what I really should have done is I should have split these up. Would have been better, I think, if I had, say, like a normal sized house there, then 8 farms, then another normal sized house, then 8 farms, and I should have probably split it that way because it would have been a bit more efficient. Because I mean, these people here, for instance, they're going all the way up to here to dump stuff into a barn, which, yeah, it's not that efficient, to be honest. So I mean, all these little things I'm sort of like picking up as I go along, and I'm going to sort of like try and sort that out when we get over to village 3. I mean, like here, for instance, I've actually gone off the actual use of hostels, to be honest, because I think that's partly why we've got such a low amount of food. The reason I introduced them was because it's a lot easier. I mean, just one building, that one building alone's, you know, plenty of capacity for all the people that work here, because we've got like 16 people working these orchards. Now that's bigger than a normal sized house. Even if you expand it, you're up to like 12. But the good thing about these houses, though, is once you build them, you end up with a lot more happiness, and the people are a lot more productive. So I think that's probably gone against me. One of the reasons I also did it was the fact that I didn't want a lot of kids here, because what I've been finding is if you get a child born in a house, they'll displace whoever's actually living there already. So if I had, say, 16 people living in this hostel, and they were all, the gardeners, and then a child was born, even though the pregnancy risk is supposed to be very, very low, it's still possible. The trouble then is one of those gardeners gets displaced and ends up having to live somewhere else, so they're much further away from where they actually work. I was trying to avoid that from happening, but I think it's probably gone against me in the longer term, in the sense that I just I'm sort of like missing out on that potential for higher productivity. So it probably makes more sense to have sort of like two normal houses in an area, and I think that would have been a lot better. And another thing I've noticed is the fact that the taverns, for instance, I mean, I've got one tavern to cover like 2 quadrants, and the trouble with that is we're not producing enough alcohol. I'm just going to double check, but they've got about 1 spare, they've got about 5 spare. It's just that I've noticed there's a few times people from over here would actually come all the way over to here to get to get a beer, for instance. So I think when we get to doing village version 3, the centre will probably be a lot smaller. I'll probably have more houses, in the middle of the actual quadrant, along with some, like a couple of taverns maybe. So maybe I might have like two big houses and then 2 taverns. So there you've got like that little square of 4 buildings. Then we've got the barns running in between like that, and then the orchards around in the corners. Maybe that might be the way I might do it for village 3. Similar design for as we've done here, where we've got the central storage and so on. But again, I think I'd probably go with houses versus the hostels here. I mean, I could probably bring some of these these like healer shops a lot closer together as well. There's all sorts of things I could do to try to improve it a bit. Now, that's that house over there. So over here, I mean, we're into the fall and we're kind of a bit behind, I'd say, on eggs. The bakers are coping by the looks of it, so we'll probably have to wait a while before we see that surplus, because that is what I saw. I mean, we had about like 400 or 500, surplus of eggs, so I thought, I'll just cut back on the number of chickens in that case. But it's just that like tipping point, so probably want like a coop that's got like 2 people running it rather than 2 individual coops, I'd imagine. Oats, we're still doing okay for oats, but yeah, we've just still got too much grain, too much flour over here. Meat's doing a bit better now, so that's good. Still got plenty of fruit, vegetables are starting to go up. I think my only concern is whether these people will be able to harvest these fields quickly enough. I mean, we've obviously had to introduce an extra field, that's for certain, up here. Because these 4 are just not enough. That was the only one out of the 4 where I've had to instruct them to gather immediately, so they're not at full capacity. So the question now is whether they actually manage to get all this lot harvested before we actually, you know, hit below 0. So that's something I'm just going to have to wait and see. But just going to let this play out. Basically, there's quite a few sort of like buildings to get on with at the moment. I'd rather get that house up there built first, just because of the fact that I know that the people working in that pigsty they'll be living somewhere else. I don't know where, but they're just not in this area, or somebody else in this area has been displaced because I've introduced them. So I'm just going to basically play this out, get things built. Once I'm ready to get these fish farms built, I'll bring you back. Well, we're into the fall and most of the potatoes have been emptied from the fields. I think it's that field there is down to 469. That one there's 595, 357, 427 compared to. So that one there's, well, that one's still got a lot further to go. And I think that's basically because I've introduced an extra mod. Now, last year we temperature dropped below 0, and there was still, well, it's still been something like 700 to 900 potatoes in each of these fields, so we never managed to harvest the entire crop. So I thought I'd reintroduce one of the mods back again this year. So as soon as the year started, I brought back the farming overhaul mod. Yeah, that one there. I brought that one back. We got so far into spring, and all of a sudden the graphics card utilization just dropped to next to nothing. I think probably one of these oat fields probably started to get harvested. So for whatever reason, it's impacting the graphics card and it's stopping it working as it should do. And it's meant that the game just practically grinds to a halt for me. So straight away I took the mod back out, reloaded the game at the start of the year. And what I did is I reintroduced this one, which is the Smarter Farmers mod. Now, we're getting towards, I think it was like early summertime, and these fields managed to get full. So I cranked these up to about 6 people. Didn't seem to be doing as good as I was hoping, so I've since cranked it right up to each field has now got 8 people in them. So they're managing to clear the farm out a lot quicker. And graphics card's still working fine. So, I mean, I know when I was testing things, the mod, which if I can find it, is the storage one. I mean, that one allows me to filter things out of the barns. Basically it decides, you know, what people can put into a barn. It doesn't affect you if you grab a hold of somebody and deposit things yourself. It doesn't affect the caravanners. It only affects the villagers when they're running around, you know, on their own. Really good mod, but I do think there is a combination. I mean, this one more so than anything, because as I say, as soon as I reintroduced this, it was a very short space of time when all of a sudden the graphics card just ground to a halt. When I took this one out originally on its own, I think my utilization went from something like 4% to 13%, so there was an improvement just removing that. And it probably makes sense, because if you think about it, I mean, the computer's having to make a lot more decisions if you're filtering things out and telling it what it can and can't do. But I honestly don't understand why that one's causing problems to the graphics card. There might be a situation where there's just all these extra objects being introduced into the game that didn't exist before. I mean, if you think about it, if you've got like a little stack sitting down here versus a big stack, you know, you're just counting how many fruits in that barn maybe as one stack, whereas you might have lots and lots of little individual, like little baskets sitting in the field here, and it just adds complexity to the game or something. It's difficult to tell, but it's basically I'm finding I can more or less achieve what I want to do now though by having that mod versus that mod. I really do like that one because this one does make a lot more sense to me. It sounds like it's a lot more efficient because I was getting something like about 8,000 vegetables each season, whereas now we're at about 5,000, probably push 6,000 I think if we're lucky. And it is a bit fiddly in the sense I've got to keep cranking up the number of farmers when we get into the summer, but yeah, it's kind of like a compromise. At least we're improving things. Now, down here we've got all of this lot built, waiting for the roads to get done. And I'm just going to start introducing all these fish farms, so that'll improve things quite a bit. We'll start having more things for the actual farmers to do during the winter time. Up here we're not doing too bad for eggs. I mean, we're up to 58 in spare capacity, but yeah, just tons and tons of grain and flour still, so I really need them to power through that a lot more than anything. Oats, yeah, we seem to be doing okay on the oats so far. We're still down to one oat field, so I don't know whether it's a case of because we've taken the fences away that's improved it. It's definitely helped for the actual grain, the wheat that we were making before. Not the wheat, sorry, the hay, because we've got like tons of hay just sitting in this barn here and this barn down here. I mean, I've since disabled these two grass fields, went down to just one field. I mean, I remember before I've been having to run all 3 fields at the same time, so yeah, take your pick as to what you think is the solution, but in any case we seem to be okay on that. We're still doing okay on the fruit. Meat, we seem to be doing better for meat now, which is good. We've got this house up and running. It's been fully upgraded as well, and I've just basically I've let that one just max itself out. So there's plenty of housing around here for the the pig farmers and the oat farmers as well. Pig farmers. Yeah, it's pig farm here. Technically they're herdsmen, but yeah, whatever. So the plan is now is basically I'm just going to leave that mod running for the actual smarter farmers, see how it goes. But in the meantime, we're going to get on with building our fish farms. My only concern though is we're running out of tools. We still don't really have enough food for that area down there. I mean, this barn's pretty much maxed out now. So I've got instructions to start pulling all of the flax out. I really need them to start putting more food in here, so it's not well, there is quite a bit of food in there, not as much as I'd like. And that's having a kind of a knock-on effect to that barn, which in turn affects how much can be sent to here, which these people can then benefit from. But I'll just have to keep playing it out and see how things go. So I'll get on with these fish farms. Once we're done, I'll bring you back. Well, we're into the fall of the next year. We're actually well into the fall, to be honest. I've just held off recording anything because it was like really dark because of the thunderstorms. You could hardly see anything for like, it was so dark, all the rain and everything. But the good thing is, I mean, we actually harvested quite a lot of vegetables over here. We got so far into the fall and we had about 9,000 in stock. I think we're getting towards late fall now, but these lot have managed to reseed the fields, and we're actually up to like 1,300 in this one field here, ready to be harvested again. Whether they'll be able to do that or not, I don't know, to be honest, because there's not that much time left. But yeah, they did really well, which is I'm a bit surprised in some cases because it's the actual season started off quite late. The winter lasted well into spring, so they didn't get to start planting anything until later into spring. The only thing I did differently myself was that I put 4 people into each field as soon as I noticed these fields were full and ready to be harvested. The previous year I'd put 2 people in, and then seeing as it didn't seem to be going quick enough, I then added an extra 2. So this time I just went straight in, put 4 people in each field, giving a total of 8. So we doubled the capacity of people working in each field, and it cleared it out a lot quicker, which was great. So I think the fields sort of managed to, they grow their harvest a lot quicker, and then it was a case of they managed to actually harvest it a lot quicker. So yeah, but anyway, as far as our fish farms go, we've now got that little section built, so that means we've got now an extra 16 potential fish farmers for this winter. I'm not going to go any further than that though, because I don't know how many fish we'll end up with. I mean, we don't have enough fish in stock at this moment in time, but I don't know if we'll be able to produce enough to last for an entire year now that we've built these. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait, see how it goes, and if we don't produce enough, then we'll build another 16, because there's actually enough farmers still left over, interestingly enough. We've got, I think it'll work out that once I've pulled everybody out of the orchards and the fields to cover these places here, there's 48 here now. There'll be 16 people still left in the actual fields. So yeah, there is still capacity for another 16 fish farmers anyway. But yeah, I'm just going to leave that for now. One interesting thing I noticed actually was while I was building these fish farms here, I needed a lot more wood, so I got them to chop a lot of the trees down over here and here, and the game kind of stalled. It was the same symptom as before, where the graphics card utilization dropped. It literally dropped and it stayed very, very low. Now the only thing in comparison I'd say to that farming overhaul mod is that both of them end up with things being left lying on the floor, because that's usually what happens, is they'll chop the trees down, leave a pile of wood on the floor, and it's usually them or somebody else ends up coming along having to pick them up. Now when you've got that mod enabled, that's kind of like what the farmers do. They harvest the crops and then they drop everything on the floor, so you end up with lots of little objects lying around. So I don't know if that's a problem where you just suddenly end up with lots of little objects that the game has to suddenly account for, whereas before there was just hardly anything in comparison. It's something to think of, but it was just a one-off. That's the only time I noticed it. Otherwise the game's been running as before. I've just been playing it out 3 times and not a problem. So yeah, definitely good news on that front. One other problem is we've run out of tools. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself a carpenter shop built, because we're still not at the position where we can get people working back down here again to produce tools down here. I need to get this barn cleared out. It's full of like wool more than anything, flour. So they're not producing any more grain. They're not producing any more flour because they've hit a cap anyway. So ideally I want to get all of that up to here. Well, I want to get the wool up to here, the flour up to here, and then we can start clearing that barn, and hopefully then we can start seeing more food going in there. To get the wool sorted out, I've already got one of the weavers actually working on making woolen clothes versus the normal clothes. So I mean, we'll get there. We'll get it cleared out, and hopefully that'll have a knock-on effect to this area. But yeah, quick win. I really need to get a carpenter shop up and running. So the only thing left really is what to do about this area, or at least what to do in terms of making more bakeries, because this is more of like a test area. I need to think of more of a finalised solution. Now, one windmill and one wheat field is like it's just produced. You know, you produce way more grain and flour than just like 2 bakeries need. So I don't know. Maybe I need 4 bakeries in each section, like one section for meat pies, one for fruit pies, one for vegetable pies. I don't know. I'll have to have a bit of a think about it. Or maybe I just need a sort of like a centralised, centralised wheat and mill area, and then everybody just comes in and picks up the produce from there. Something I'll need to think about it. I really just need to find out what is the capacity of one windmill. But this is just a test area, so it's a case of might have a think about something to do on this side instead next time round. And then eventually we will clear this down once I've kind of like got it in my head as to what will work. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this episode, because it's gone through a lot easier than it had before. We're making good progress in terms of the food and so on, so forth. So yeah, definitely better. But that's it for this episode. I do hope you've enjoyed watching it. If so, then do please leave a like, because that'll help me out a great deal. If you're new to the channel and you'd like to see more content like this, then yes, do please subscribe. Just remember to click the little bell icon though, because then you get notifications when I send any new content out. If you've got any comments, any suggestions, if you want to leave any feedback at all, please post that in the comment section below. Till the next episode, thanks very much for watching. Bye!